Hello and welcome back to the FanTeam YouTube channel. Today we're doing a team reveal for the monster of this game week. Just to remind you, it's £1.68 to enter for the £10,000 prize pool draw, or you can pay £10 and 8 pence for the £42,000 draw there. There's a lot of chances to be winning big with FanTeam this season, and that is why we're making these weekly videos to help you with your selections. On this week's show, so Gianni and I did it yesterday. Now today we've got the differential Dinnery himself, and I gotta say to people, you should listen to Ben because he is ahead in our league at the moment. There was a lot of discussions with Gianni last week, a lot of tutting and questioning of your differential greatness, Ben, but you came out on top. In fact, you actually were in the money this game week. I mean, how good was game week 3 for you in terms of FanTeam?
It was a solid game week. I finished on 68 points, which was a cash finish. Regardless of what we returned, we always want that little bit more. There was one or two disappointing players within that, but overall, I do like it when obviously beat me fellow competitors. I feel justified in making those decisions. But for me, that's what I love about the monster. I love, and particularly Gianni, because it's about changing this mindset and his philosophy from he's been so ingrained in that season long game that it does require a little bit of out of the box thinking to really look to maximize your possibilities of returning. So that's, for me, that's what I love. That's what it keeps it exciting. And that's what keeps me driving forward and hoping that I'm going to cash out again in game week 4.
And you're a whole 14 points ahead of Gianni at the moment in the rankings. I came second on 60.4 points, just a little bit off the money, but I'm not too mad because I'm not in last place. But let's go into your team, because this could be the first place team of this game week. And starting with the goalkeeper, you've gone premium, you've gone big, 8.9 million Edison. What's the thoughts behind that?
Yeah, well, he wasn't first choice, if the truth be told. I looked at Mendy. He was the one, and went back to front, but ultimately couldn't shoehorn everybody in that I wanted. And I looked at Edison, and he's very appealing this game week to me. He saves, almost, I think it's 0.8 million on Mendy. And that's reflective of the fact that City play away at the King Power against Leicester. Leicester haven't been great this season. And yes, I know people are going to talk about Jamie Vardy and his record against City and the chances that, he may pop up with another goal. But for me, City are head and shoulders above where Leicester are at this point in time. Their underlying stats are poor. They scraped, a narrow 2-1 victory at Carrow Road. They've got a host of injury problems. I don't think Brendan Rodgers is settled with his formation. The absence of Ayoze Perez, we hope Ricardo Pereira could be absent as well. So I really strongly fancy that Manchester City clean sheet.
And yeah, the data is with you as well in terms of it. Leicester bottom 4 for XG for the season. They're really not doing well, not creating a lot of chances, not creating a lot of big chances, where they are actually joint bottom at the league table there in terms of big chances created. It's not going well for the Foxes at the moment. Let's move on to the defensive back line, and you've kind of gone with what I've done, what Gianni's done. You've gone small at the back so that you can go big up front, because that's where the big points are. You've got Cooper, Duffy and from Brentford in there. I mean, is it risky having Cooper in against Liverpool?
And that's reflected in his price point, 5.4 million. So he is really the bargain defender of that back line. And there's a couple of reasons as to why I've took a punt on Cooper. First and foremost, Leeds inherently do a lot better at Ellen Road than they do away from home. So let's not be too swayed by, say, the results at Old Trafford. Leeds are still a solid team on their home patch in front of their home supporters. And also, Leeds do quite well against the big six at home. and have done in the past. So for me, factor in the uncertainties in and around these internationals, players travelling back, potentially COVID. It doesn't take a lot to for me to weaken that Liverpool team. They've got some key players, and I think they've lacked just a little bit of strength in depth. And for me, that midfield area is potentially and maybe a little bit of a weak spot. I mean, higher up the pitch, the Manes, the Salahs, the Jotas, or the Firmino, probably Jota, in my opinion. They can win games on their own, but those three in behind, look, you're going to have inconsistencies from Harvey Elliott. Jordan Henderson's just coming back into it. Milner's being sidelined. Curtis Jones has been sidelined. Thiago's yet to break in the team. So I think there's positions up for grabs. So I think this could be a fairly tight game. And at 5.4 million, I'm happy to take that punt with Cooper.
And then moving on to the other two defenders that you've got in there, you've gone Duffy and Ayer. Both are playing each other in that game, Brighton versus Brentford. Brentford at home there at Griffin Park. It's an interesting one. And, why have you doubled up on one fixture there?
Yeah, look, this is the gamble. This is the risk that I have taken. And I'm leaning towards a 0-0 in this game. I think, Brentford, they're still getting acclimatised to playing at the top flight. And Brighton, fairly robust. They know exactly what's going on in the Premier League. They know how to defend. Duffy has been the standout performer in Graham Potter's backline in terms of a player that's come from absolutely nowhere. Didn't have a great loan spell at Celtic. The Seagulls lost a few players to injury, and he's come in and he's, arguably, like I say, he's nailed down in that spot, and he's a threat from set pieces as well. So ideally, I'm fingers crossed. I'm going for that 0-0 draw. We'll see what happens. We're not spending a lot of money there. We all know that FanTeam weight towards that more attacking play. So it's 6.9 and 7.2. They're probably priced at the lower end of some of the defenders that are available. And again, they've got chances to keep clean sheets. I think it will be a really tight game. And I'd be very surprised if at least one of those players didn't return a clean sheet.
Yeah, this is the interesting thing, is going into this game week, the data is that Brentford and Brighton are priced equally as keeping clean sheets, both at 37%. So, the data's there with you that this is probably likely to be a clean sheet game. Low scoring, not many opportunities there. But as you said, the exciting bit is the midfield. You've gone big there, 5 in the middle. You've gone with Mount, Gray, Fernandes, Grealish, and Ward-Prowse. I mean, do you want to talk us through the reasoning behind this very differential midfield?
Well, this is what I love about the Monster. It allows you to pick players ordinarily who you wouldn't seriously give any consideration to. I'll start with the captain in Bruno, and while the all and sundry are gravitating towards Cristiano Ronaldo and making his debut against Newcastle at Old Trafford, I'm going to put my money on a more reliable source just for this particular game week in Bruno. We know that Ronaldo has been isolating, 5 days worth of quarantine. At most, he's going to have one full day of training with his new teammates. Factor that in, and also that he hasn't had a great deal of minutes in his legs. I just think that it may be a little bit too early for Ronaldo to start. I think it's more likely that he may come into that starting level for European glory. And for me, against a poor Newcastle team, with defensively, our role at sea, the ground is going to be absolutely buzzing. And I think Bruno's going to come to the fore and really deliver a big performance. And, let's not forget the guy is absolute quality. I think people are expecting him to just disappear, following the arrival of Ronaldo, but I don't see that. I think there's definitely room for those two in the team to keep on bringing the points home. Across at Chelsea, I'm big fans of Chelsea this season. I would have been leaning towards Lukaku, but the the thigh issue that's been niggling for the past couple of weeks is a slight concern. And so I've opted for, one of your favourites in Mason Mount, because, he's probably one of the players that we consider to be, one of Tuchel's nailed on starters. And he's a player that delivers a high level of consistent performances. And regardless of who's in that front line, Mount will be supplying those bullets. And against an Aston Villa team, a team that's struggling, but and they've got injuries to contend with, I think we could see Chelsea hit 2, 3, 4 goals in that one, and Mason Mount won't be too far away from bringing home the bacon. Gray, Damari Gray, not a player that I would ever, a name past my lips, but and when he arrived at Goodison Park, I think those question marks and eyebrows raised. He was one of those. Rafa Benitez snuffed it out, looking through his stats, and the guy is meticulous in terms of looking at the data. And he may have unearthed a gem. I think he arrived at Goodison for certainly under 2 million. I think it was maybe in and around 1.7, 1.8 million. He's a player who had a lot of potential at Leicester. For whatever reason, he didn't quite fulfill that. So maybe he feels he's got something to prove. Maybe this is his last opportunity to prove himself in the Premier League. And he's certainly doing that in bucket loads. And yes, Burnley have looked a little bit more like the old Burnley that we know. Hard to break down, solid 4-4-2 unit. But I still think, Everton have been fairly direct. You know what you're going to get. If it's Townsend and Gray, they're going to be putting the balls in the box. Richarlison, DCL, if he's fit. And I just think, look, at 10 million, I think there's a good opportunity there for Gray to return against a team who, are still finding the feet this season. They are missing players through injury, so I think Everton and Rafa could capitalise on that.
I do want to interrupt there with the Gray situation, though. We know the way that Burnley play, the very direct. We know the way that Everton play is very direct, over the top. They're gonna, try and counter any sort of midfield. But Burnley, that's their bread and butter. They sit low. They're low block. They have very good aerial players as well in Ben Mee, Tarkowski. Pope is more than kind of trained with that. To make you a little bit worried that maybe Gray supplying DCL, giving crosses in the box, that's not going to work this game week.
Yeah, I just think that Gray's actually shown that he's got a little bit more to his game as well. We know he's already capable, and he's returned goal already for the Toffees. So, even if it's not about supplying the likes of DCL and Richarlison, I think he's a guy who, look, he's quick turn of pace, sleight of foot, he's nimble, and he could be, he's a tricky little customer. And when he's on his game, he's going to be difficult to mark. There's nothing. I'll always back a horse in the race that's got something to prove. That's got that fight and that desire to go out there and prove the doubters wrong. And at this moment in time, Gray, it appears to me that Gray is doing that.
So move it on to Grealish and Ward-Prowse.
Jack Grealish, we're looking at that City team as always. Pep Roulette. Who's he going to start? We know that Foden and Kevin De Bruyne are on the verge of a return to the first team. I don't think neither is ready to start. This is probably, maybe the next game, week or two, certain where I think Jack Grealish will come into the team. And again, he's grown into that position. He's got the backing of Pep. He's their big money buy. And again, he's a player that just loves that responsibility, that pressure, the opportunity to play on the biggest stage. And, it may be matched up as the James Maddison versus the Jack Grealish show. But I just think City will have far too much for this Leicester team. And, Jack Grealish loves the limelight, will want to put on a performance, and I expect him to deliver. And James Ward-Prowse, now this is this is one that a lot of people may question. And this is almost a little bit of a punt. I think you could have looked at the opening fixture or so, and seeing Southampton as maybe struggling, but they've bounced back with a couple of big performances. James Ward-Prowse missed a lot of pre-seasons with a knee problem. So again, he's been playing himself back in. We know he is the focal point of that Saints attack, set pieces, corners. He's on penalties. So he's never going to be too far away from what they're creating. And against West Ham, I'm just gambling on the fact that they'll have one eye on European football. They may have one or two players who are coming back from international duty, a little bit jaded. We don't know the full situation with regards to which players are double jabbed, which players will have to quarantine, and for how long. So there's maybe just a little bit of a punt with regards to that. I think, Antonio has been huge for West Ham, during these opening game weeks. We've seen he's been away with Jamaica. One of the games that he was withdrawn in and around that 70th minute mark, and that was reported as a little bit of fatigue and then a little bit of tiredness, which would be a concern. You take Mikel Antonio out of that West Ham team, and I'm not saying that is, but if you do, you just change the whole dynamic. The pressure changes. It's great at Ben Rama, at Bowen, at Fornals, dominating teams when they're on top, and you've got an Antonio who can finish them. Take him out of the team and you're looking at, right, well, where are the goals? Where's that goal scorer? Who could ease the pressure? Does that psychologically just get in the minds of the players? And that's me thinking with James Ward-Prowse. Maybe Southampton, who are going to high press, really hurry, work hard, and we'll touch upon, I've got Adam Armstrong up front. I think Adam Armstrong has made that transition so far from the Championship up to the Premier League. That's been fairly seamless. He looks a threat. He looks a goal scorer. He's clinical. And I see those two combining really, really well. So yeah, that's me Ward-Prowse. And obviously I touched upon Adam Armstrong as being, he'll go into the front line as a 2, alongside Gabriel Jesus. And while I don't expect him to play centrally as most people did, I think I was one of those people in pre-season that looked at that City team and thought, right, well, without Sergio Aguero, Gabriel Jesus is the number 9. But Pep, of course, he loves to throw a curveball, sticks Ferran Torres in there and puts Gabriel Jesus out on that right-hand side. And he's been a bit of a revelation. He talked about his role with Brazil and how he likes to come in off the right and play out there, whether he's supplying or whether he's coming in and getting the opportunities to take those chances himself. So yeah, I've went triple City just based on the fact that, I think Leicester are struggling, and I don't really see anything changing too much until they get a bulk of those players back, which, there are 1 or 2, but maybe, they're still a little bit short for me.
So just with a little bit of final analysis here, I mean, the question is, you've captained Fernandes, and you're still believing in him, but if Ronaldo does start, 44.8% of Fernandes' goals last season came from the penalty spot. I mean, that's almost 50%. That's a huge chunk out there. Is it a bit of a gamble to gamble on him in this game? Arguably, I mean, maybe you should captain somebody else like a Grealish or like a Jesus against a Leicester team that aren't doing too well. But also, it seems such a big risk to have that Fernandes player in your side.
But for me, that's what the Monster is all about. It's about taking those opportunities, taking that chance and gambling on something ordinary that you wouldn't take the punt on. And I'm also taking a chance on my own instincts in the fact that I firmly believe that Ronaldo will not start. And just the occasion of the day, the atmosphere, Bruno will want to go out there and, he will want to show people that there is still a top quality player that can deliver. Nobody disappears just because Ronaldo, nobody's just going to put him on a mantle and, he is the god. Fernandes, they will lift the legs of Pogba, the Greenwoods, everybody within that team will be lifted. Newcastle, and by the way, if you haven't followed me before, you know that Newcastle is my hometown club. So, I don't captain Bruno against my team lightly. I just think we're in for a torrid afternoon in terms of what United could bring to the party with their attacking assets.
I do like the Grealish pick, but Ferran Torres, he's played so well recently. He played incredibly against Arsenal, and Pep has kind of talked about him as being the striker. You've also talked about yourself that Jesus has been switched onto the wing. He's creating opportunities, but he's not through the middle because it seems like Torres is the one there. Do you think that maybe Torres would be a better pick than Grealish, with Pep kind of backing him as the main centre forward of the team?
I mean, there's no question that Torres has been handed an opportunity and grasped it with both hands, and he's been outstanding. And I think as a short-term pick, he's great. Longer term, there are question marks whether that's coming in and around that team. But the only slight concern that I had was his involvement with Spain, and he's continued that goal scoring format for the national team as well. But in terms of just minutes and question, when we're recording, there are still question marks with regards to will players have to quarantine? Are players double jabbed if they've been involved in amber listed countries? So, we've still got a couple of days to maybe assess the situation. This isn't set in stone. It isn't necessarily locked in. There could be one or two little bits of tweaks bearing late information, but I'm trying to make early calls based on how I would perceive teams maybe lining up following their involvement with their respective national teams and what's been happening maybe over the last 7 to 10 days.
And so the final question is doubling up on Southampton against the inform West Ham. You have explained quite a lot there, with the international situation, as Antonio fatigued and things like that. But the form, the data, the fixture, it's all in West Ham's favour. Or is this what the Monster is about for you? Going against the grain, finding a team there. Like you said, Armstrong's been in great form. James Ward-Prowse can turn up against anybody and everybody. Is that the almost differential Dinnery trademark move that you've just got that feeling?
Absolutely nailed it there, Jason. I mean, I go back to this different mindset, this philosophy, and I play the season long game, and we all started on a fairly solid grounding when you had the Salahs and the Brunos, and they returned. And look, it looked great on paper. You got a high score, high double-digit score, and even a triple-digit score. You look at your overall rank, and it didn't. Everybody's in the same boat. For me, trying to unearth these differential gems or what can potentially take your team from nowhere to finishing well in the cash prizes. And we talk about differentials. It's only a differential because a lot of people don't. I don't see them as differentials. I just people may not necessarily subscribe to the way I think. And ownership levels may not be as high, but in terms of these are still high quality players playing for good Premier League teams who can deliver on any given day. And yes, West Ham have been a solid start to the season, but I don't think they're great. Certainly not defensively. I think Southampton can create, and down at St Mary's, Ralph Hasenhüttl will want his team to get 3 points on the board. They will take that point against Newcastle, St James's Park. That will give them that's a big shot in the arm for them. So I'm happy to take a punt on Southampton, knowing for the fact that if they do bang, that's going to project me, well up that monster table, and hopefully for another cash prize, and hopefully leave you and Johnny in my wake, eating my dust.
Well, that is the point of this. The three of us are kind of competing against each other, and we will do a three-way video with all of us kind of soon. But we're doing these shorter extracts as well to kind of get the insight into, as you've explained there, the psychology, the philosophy of the Monster game week there. And just to remind people, please do get involved. there is the opportunity, like I said, you can go with the £1 68p game in terms of a £10,000 prize pool, or you can go in with the big monster, which is the £10 and 8p ticket. And there's so many opportunities to win prizes. If you do win, you get 10% of that prize pool. So sometimes if it goes over and there's a lot of kind of interest in it, that prize pool might increase, but at the moment it is £4,200. But the wonderful thing is a lot of people, you don't have to come first, you don't have to come in the top 100. There's a lot of positions that are paid out in it, and you can enter as many times as possible as well, because as Ben has explained, he has his way of playing, Gianni has his way, and I have my way. If you combined all those three, you could have three different teams, very different approaches, and you've got all your bases covered. So do keep that in mind as well. There's no restrictions on the number of teams. But for now, I'm going to sign us out. I'm going to wish you all the best of luck, and I hope you've enjoyed this team reveal for differential Dinnery's Big 11.